Yes, it's Wednesday. It's the Clergy Cafe. Welcome back. Good evening and welcome back once again to the Clergy Cafe. It's great to have you with us. Apologies for once again our slight technical hitch at the beginning there. YouTube was not playing ball with us tonight at all. Fingers crossed, the problem's solved now and that'll be the only hitch for tonight. But you never know. Welcome back once again. I was saying before to Father Chris and to our guests tonight that it feels really strange at the minute. We're a bit sporadic with the Clergy Cafe. But it's great to be back with you once again this week. Obviously, we missed the Clergy Cafe last week for the Explore evening, which was fab. But we continue once again with our religious life specials as we explore the different religious congregations that are willing to say yes to being interviewed live on the Clergy Cafe. And tonight, I'm delighted to welcome Sister Bernie and Sister Una, who are two Loreto sisters, and they're going to share with us some of their charism and some of their ways of working as well. But first of all, as always, I'm going to bring in Father Chris, who's going to say hi to us. One sec, Father Chris. Okay, we're good. So, Father Chris, it's hard to believe we are sat here on the brink of Holy Week.
I know, it's gone so fast, hasn't it?
Do you know, we sat at the same time last year, and I think it was this week last year we were frantically planning what was Holy Week going to look like for us. But now we've got a plan, and it's quite different this year, isn't it?
It is. There's some tweaks and changes to the liturgy to make them COVID safe and to make sure everyone feels safe within our churches. But thank God we will be together in church this time rather than just behind a camera like we were last year.
Yeah, it really is incredible. We're going to be there. However, we are still going to be broadcasting. We're going to be sharing some of the different parts of the diocese. The Triduum's going to come from different places. However, we are going to go live on Monday at 4 p.m, aren't we? Just to share some of the essence of what we're going to see that week.
Yeah, just to reflect through what the week's going to look like. Give a bit of a synopsis, a bit of a preview of the week ahead.
Yeah. So tonight, Religious Life Special once again. These have been quite incredible, haven't they? I mean, we never expected this to grow quite as well. The Christian Brothers were fab last week, weren't they? Or 2 weeks ago.
They were excellent. Excellent. Really good to hear some of their story.
I know I'm springing this one on you completely, but why do you think this is important to be doing?
I think it just expands people's vision of what church is about, and that we've all got a different part to play, be it as lay people in the pew, working for the church in everyday life, to clergy, to the religious who contribute so much through so many different ways. It's that big, our family story in a sense. And
I hope you would agree with me, but I didn't expect to get what we've got from the religious. They've been excellent. It's been amazing, isn't it? The journey that we've been on with this one.
Been really good. I mean, the stories have been fantastic. I know the stories have been fantastic. We always run over time with you, Sandy.
What are you trying to say there now?
Not nothing, no.
Hopefully we're going to try and run to time, although we've already started a little bit late, but we'll see what happens tonight. So, Father Chris, as always, thanks a million for being with us, and we shall look forward to joining you at the end. So, as I said, we've got two Loreto sisters with us tonight to share their stories. And without further ado, I'm just going to introduce them. So tonight, I'm delighted to be joined by Sister Bernie and Sister Una. I'm going to start with Sister Bernie, who originates from Manchester and entered the Loreto Sisters in 1960. Sister Bernie has gone to work in many different areas in different fields. She's worked in both secondary and in higher education. Sister Bernie's also been involved in the Loreto Sisters at province and worldwide levels, both as province leader and as novice director. Sister Bernie is still involved in province leadership and is also currently part-time chaplain at Wythenshawe Hospital. Sister Una joined the congregation in 1997. Before entering, she worked as a medical laboratory scientist, that's not easy to say, and secondary school teacher. She spent 2 years in novitiate in Dalston in London. Sister Una has also been a school chaplain in Manchester. And apart from studies, she's also worked in retreat director in Loyola Hall in Merseyside and in Loreto Sisters Retreat Centre in Llandudno. Currently she's University Chaplain at University of Birmingham and also works at the Marriage Tribunal for the Archdiocese of Birmingham. Sister Una is also studying for her licence in Canon Law. I am delighted that they've said yes to joining us tonight. And so I'm just going to welcome into the Clergy Cafe Sister Bernie and Sister Una. Good evening and welcome to you both. And thank you for saying yes to joining us in our Religious Life specials. It's great to have you with us. And if you're both happy, we're just going to fire on and start digging some questions, if that's all right. So Sister Bernie, I'm going to start with you, if that's okay. Could you tell us a little bit about the Loreto Sisters, maybe for those of us who haven't heard about the sisters? Sister Bernie, will you just unmute your microphone for me?
Right.
That's it.
I think
we're there.
I think I'll start with when we first began. And a name that some of you may have heard before, name of Mary Ward, who's our founderess. And Sandy was saying earlier about people's different times of founding. Mary Ward was born in 1585, so many years ago. And the congregation actually began in 1609 by right. And in 2009, we celebrated 400 years of
Wow.
Mary Ward's congregation and Loreto Sisters and Companions of Jesus in ministry and mission. Mary Ward was a Yorkshire woman, very down-to-earth woman, who walked the Alps 5 times and did much to get her congregation approved by Rome. Now we are praying very much for her beatification, which is really dear to our hearts. In 2009, she was named Venerable, and that was after our trip in Rome. In 2009, we went to Mass in York Minster, a fantastic experience. Then many of us went to Rome in the summer. Peter Square was alive with Subito Sancto, in other words, get on with the Pope and pray for a saint. And then at the end of the year, or the beginning of the next year, we had Westminster Mass there with the Cardinal. So it was really a very special time. So she's the first person I want to mention. The second person is Teresa Ball. And Teresa Ball was a young woman who came from Ireland to the Bar Convent in 1816 about, and she trained to take the Institute back to Ireland. And she went back to Ireland in 2021. So this year we have 200 years of Loreto Sisters, as we are known, moving out from ministry. So she went back and she had a passion for mission. And Mary Wood had a passion for mission, but by the time it came to Teresa Ball, there were new possibilities. And so the Institute spread out. In spreading out, one of the problems was wars, political situations, pandemics. So there was a kind of breakup because of the situations. But Loreto was very much part and parcel of her life. And then 175 years ago, Mother Alphonsa Ellis came from Ireland to Manchester. And that's how we came to be in England. When I was at school, we had 3 houses, Ward, Ball and Ellis. And at first, I think we didn't, what are these? But as time went on, those 3 women became very much part of our lives. And I suspect, if I look back, they had an influence on myself. It's interesting to see, that those 3 people make us who we are as Loreto Sisters today. And so that's a little bit about her. The other interesting little bit is I want to put in that there I was saying about Mary Ward, and we were absolutely passionate about her being beatified. But in the early 1900s, the bishops of England wrote to Rome and got the go-ahead to start the process for canonization. But would you believe it? The war came in between.
Right.
So that put things off. Then it came back again, but we're still here. So keep it going, keep moving, keep praying, keep praying.
And I think what first of all strikes me is the history that must be there is incredible. But what would you say? How would you describe the charism of the Loreto Sisters?
Well, the charism comes from Mary Ward's own vision, where when she first felt called, she thought maybe it was to be a Paul Clare. She went to Saint Omer and discovered no, that was not for her. So gradually, she was listening to the Spirit, listening to the Lord speaking to her, and she heard very clearly, take the same of the society. So Ignatian spirit for women, lived by women, is very much our charism. So we are women, contemplatives in action, in that sense, that our root is mission. So our charism is being attuned to the world and seeing where would the gospel be today.
I love that term, contemplatives in action. Sister Bernie, no, I'm putting you on the spot here. Would you just unpick that one for us? What is it you mean by contemplative in action? Because I personally think it's a brilliant turn of phrase. Would you just unpick that one for us?
Well, if you think about it, most people in the early stages of religious life were contemplatives and praying for their life, and they were inside walls. Mary Ward did not want monasteries. She did not want us tied down by having to go to different prayers at different times. But she did want us to be people who were reflecting, discerning, and in tune with the Lord who's with us. So there wasn't a set program. No, there was a set program in one sense that people came together to pray, but you didn't have to leave the fields and come back in for 12 o'clock. You didn't have to do something like that. So just as Ignatius sent his people out over the world, Mary Ward sent people out in her time all over Europe.
And I just love that. I love that idea of the contemplative in action. So I was dead pleased, and that wasn't even planned, but that was brilliant. And what type of works would you say that the Loreto Sisters do nowadays? I think probably over the years that's changed, but what would the Loreto Sisters do now?
It has. That when it first began, it was to do with women. It was to do with education, and that was went on for many, many years. Now, in one sense, education is still the root, because whatever you do, you're widening people's perspectives. But what we do now is how we talk about it is looking at the needs of the times, looking at where we are. So what is the need? Can we go there? How can we be it? So diverse, very many diverse. So you can see here, different chaplains, different ways of being with people, setting up things. Religious education in its widest sense, adult religious education, spirituality, lots of people doing wonderful voluntary work at this stage of their lives. So in a sense, and being with those on the margins, being with the trafficked, being an advocate for people, wherever we can see something, we would look for it. Say, for example, South Sudan, people out there, people out in the different countries that we've been. In England, we moved out to Albania, the Philippines, but within our own country, there is so much going on.
Yeah. And I think that's for us. That's why this is so important. Just unpicking that, and like some people will never heard of the Loreto Sisters. We're lucky enough in our diocese that you're present. So, Sister Una, I'm going to switch to you now, if that's all right. And I'm going to ask you, maybe this is a hard question. If you could sum up the sisters in a few words, what would they be?
That is a hard question. I think the words I've chosen are described as passionate, as friendly, and brave. And we're passionate about the gospel. Mm-hmm. We're passionate about Mary Ward's charism, Ignatian spirituality, and our chosen way to live and to interact with the world. We're friendly. You can see us all over the place. We don't wear a habit. We dress in normal clothes. Mm-hmm. And the reason for that is because Mary Ward always wanted us to be respected for who we are and what we do, rather than for having a title and people having preconceived expectations of who you are and what you can do. Mm. So that makes us outgoing and hopefully friendly towards other people. I think as a whole, we're very brave. We've taken on in recent years really hard initiatives, whether it is setting up schools in southern Sudan or one of our own sisters going out to Albania and living there for so many years by her own life, on her own. And even within this country, going out to the northeast and living among the people away from the support of other sisters. So I think we're always ready to move wherever the call is and wherever the need is greatest. So that's how I would sum us up.
I'm going to throw another curveball in here. I do apologise. You mentioned about the passion, and especially the passion for Mary Ward. I think that's something that strikes me, and I've only known the Loreto Sisters for a few years now. Do you think that there's a bit of an extra passion there? Because it's almost like you're almost campaigning for this sainthood. Whereas maybe other religious orders take it for granted that, we've got a saint as our founder, and that's it. Do you think that extra passion comes from that willing for Mary Ward to become a saint?
I think we want her to be a saint, not for the fact necessarily of her being a saint, because it's something we can boast about, but rather for the fact that the message she had 400 years ago is still valid today. In today's world, opportunities aren't equal for everyone. And whether it's the colour of your skin, your gender, where you're born in the world, the opportunities that you have or the opportunities that are against you, she was there for everyone to develop and be the best that they possibly can. And I think that's very true. And I think that's something that is equally valid today. So I think that's where part of our passion for her comes from, rather than just another sainthood or something like that. Yeah. I think
it does. Because I can feel the passion in you both for Mary Ward, and I think that is incredible. So one of the things I've noticed about the Loreto Sisters is that you've almost got like two names, and I've discovered that quite a few religious orders have got two names. You're also known as IBVM. What does that stand for?
That stands for the Institute of the Blessed Virgin Mary, and it's quite a mouthful to say.
and maybe that's you answering in my next question. Why would religious orders have two names?
I think sometimes they're like nicknames. So in a sense, our common name is the Loreto Sisters, but it came out of Teresa Ball when she set up in Dublin. The first house was Loreto House, and the different convents that were founded from there all had Loreto in their title. So people began to speak about us as being Loreto Sisters, and the name stuck.
It's incredible. However, you are correct in saying IBVM is quite a long name to say it every time. So we're very aware that in our current world that vocations are up and down in different congregations. What would you say the current experience for the Loreto Sisters is?
I would say we're like many other apostolic orders, that in the West, in Europe, we find it, the rate of people joining is very slow. I would also say that when people do join, they tend to join at an older age. Now they're 30s, 40s. Whereas in Africa or in Asia, they're joining, as they always have, in larger numbers and much younger in age. I think it's also a reflection upon society as much as it is for the attraction of religious life for individuals.
And so, Sister Bernie, you joined the order in 1916. Sister Una, you joined nearly 37 years later. So there's quite a big, I don't know, maybe a different way that you both joined. So I'm going to ask you the same question. What would you say that has changed in that time for you both? So, Sister Bernie, maybe do you want to answer that one first? What would you say is sort of the biggest changes you've seen?
Okay, so when I first entered, it was pre-Vatican II. And during my novitiate, Vatican II began. And I think that's the biggest change to begin with. When I was what we called a junior, still in training, we were passionate about Vatican II, Lumen Gentium, Perfecta Caritatis, all the books. We were delved into them. What did they say to us today? How could we bring this into our congregation? So from 1961 to right through to 68, when we had a general congregation, there was an awful lot of work going on about reclaiming the charism, reclaiming who we were, because in one sense, churches and bishops had kind of pushed us in a bit of a way away from Mary Ward to try and get us into a more conventional way.
Right.
And Vatican II opened up that to say, no, who you really are, come back and claim your charism. So that was an exciting time, I think. Then I would say that from that began the slow growth of worldwide missions, worldwide ministries. So, for example, we would have had our schools then, and then gradually other ministries began to come out from that, and that was really exciting. One of the sad things I felt was we had a whole lot of junior schools, local junior schools in Manchester, and we really were very much part of people's lives there. So in a sense, because of other things happening, we moved away from there, but then other new ministries evolved. But it made you see that sometimes you had to make choices about things. But in my young days, you know, I used to see the sisters going out every day, hail, rain or snow, 2 by 2 generally, and you know, giving everything to their all there. I think also because the world opened up much more as well, that's had an effect, and seeing people in our own province being missioned to different places, India and Africa, and our minds being widened as well. What was happening in the worldwide situation.
And Sister Una, the same question to you. I know it's a shorter time. You didn't have the privilege of Vatican II, but what changes have you seen in your time?
I think the biggest change for me has been ministries itself. That just before I joined, or what I knew about Loreto before I joined, was that they ran schools and it was a teaching order. And I expected that you'd have a group of sisters living and working together in a school or in another establishment. Whereas after I'd been through the novitiate and came out the other side, that's not really has been my reality. And it's been that you look for ministry that you can work in, that suits the skills that you have. So it may be different for different people. And that also leads to getting to understand discernment better. Because what I may feel attracted to do and want to do, I've joined an order, so it's not me making the decision by myself as if I'm a single person. It's rather discerned within the community with the province leadership at the time. And I think that took a time for me to adapt to, and a time to appreciate that actually I could be working somewhere in another part of the country by myself with no Loretos nearby, but I'm still part of the same ministry and the same mission. that we have.
Hmm.
That you're sent out on mission somewhere, regardless of where that place is. Because I'm not in the Loreto school doesn't mean I'm any less on mission as a Loreto sister.
So that would actually be a massive change from your time, Sister Bernie, where maybe you would have been grouped up together and said that, well, you're teaching there and that's what you do. But we're actually now, this puts more of a personal spin onto it. It's actually looking at the individual sister and saying, okay, where's right for you and for the congregation. I think that's quite forward thinking as well. So I throw that one in there. That is incredible. I think it's so important that so many religious congregations, you're seen as being, this is your pigeonhole and that's what you do. And I think that's really important to grow from. Sister Bernie, this next question might be a cheeky question, and so I do apologise if it is slightly cheeky. But did you wear the habit when you first joined?
Oh yes, I was fully habited from top to toe.
And how would you describe that?
It was a neat habit, and in that sense, but it was comfortable, and because I grew up in school with the nuns all in habits, I just knew that's what was going to happen. But when I first went in, you had a halfway kind of thing, so for the first 6 months, and then you were received into the institute as a novice, and you were given a habit, and it became part and parcel of life, really. And part and parcel of life until 1968.
So quite some time then.
Oh yes, 8 years. You got used to playing netball in it. You got used to cleaning in it, up and downstairs, all kinds of things. Yes. So yeah.
And did you find it strange when you stopped wearing the habit? And was it just a case of one day you were in the habit, next day you weren't?
No, it was a slow process. So the first stage was after 1968. I was at college in Bath, and one of the sisters wrote to me and said, we're changing the veil. So she sent me a picture to make a new veil out of the one I had on me. So I had to do that kind of overnight. And the idea was that you wouldn't have all the white stiff. You just have a little bit like that. So the veil was the first thing that changed. And I think for some people, that didn't happen straight away. For some of us, it did. For many others, it took quite a long time. And then the next thing was moving from full lengths to three-quarter lengths. So it was a gradual process, and also of moving from being all black and white to blue, and then gradually. So it's been a process that's happened in its own way, really, I think.
So for you, how did you feel moving from the habit out into sort of plain clothes?
I think diffident at first, wondering, what it was going to be like. I think most of us were quite diffident because we got quite used to not having hair showing and things, but excited as well. And my sense was that we had also seen pictures of Mary Ward in different situations wearing ordinary clothes. So there's a sense of we really are returning to our true roots. I think that was very much right.
I think it's incredible. I think it's incredible, the story of that. Now, this is the first time this has ever happened. We're going to have a quick pause in the Clergy Cafe because I don't know if anybody else noticed it coming up, but I've forgotten to plug the laptop battery in. So I'm going to take a quick pause. If you are watching us just now, do not go anywhere because I'm literally going to run to the other side of the room, find a plug, come back, plug it in. Tonight's clearly not my night. So please do not go anywhere. We will be back in literally the 10th time it takes me to run across the room and come back. Okay, thanks for sticking with us. We are now back. The battery is plugged in, and we will be good to go to the end of the broadcast. So, Sister Bernie, Sister Runa, I apologise. Trust me, it's never normally this crazy, but tonight's obviously going to be one of those nights. Sister Bernie, one of the things that you mentioned in your bio that you sent to me was that you were given a name. Sorry, I'm going to puff running across the room. And you were given the name Sister Andrew. Now, that was something that we've had mentioned before in the Clergy Cafe, and it's something that's, for want of a better word, it's a bit alien for us nowadays. And I suppose maybe for new sisters coming through, it is the same. But did you have any choice in the name you were given? And if you did, or why was Andrew chosen?
Well, I went to see the Mother Provincial, and she said to me, there's two names. One was Evangelista, which I had no idea what that name was. And the other one was Andrew. So I didn't really know anything about Andrew at that stage, but I knew he was an apostle. But I took the name Andrew. And the thing is, I got extremely attached to Andrew. So I just have great love and devotion to Andrew. And I found it very, very hard to let go. So most people change names in 1968 after the congregation we had then. I stayed with Andrew till 1986. I was known as Andy, and I gathered the sixth formers at the college called me Andy Pandy sometimes. So, but I just got, it just was me. So changing back to my own name, it was quite significant. But Andrew has always been with me, still with me.
Are there still some Loreto sisters who would use the name that they were given?
Yes. Right, one
incredible.
Of my very good friends is. Yeah, they weren't all male names. Some people were given female names, but yes.
I also find it incredible that you were just given the name. We obviously went through the reasoning behind it in one of the previous Clergy Cafes, but it was just the idea that there you go, that's your name now, and I just think that really is incredible. And it's really interesting as well that it becomes part of you as well. So we're going to move into the sort of the early years of training, if you like. And Sister Una, you were obviously in a different era of novitiate. But what was the experience of novitiate like for you?
In many ways, it's like all novitiates. It's a time that tests you. It's a time where you explore whether you're in the right place or not. And it's a time of discernment. But mine was much different from Bernie's in that we lived in a normal house in Dalston. There was the novice director and an older sister who acted as the wise figure within the community, and the four novices. And we lived in an area that was very multicultural, that was different from places we had lived before we joined the order, and probably something else to challenge us and to see how can we move into a new area, and can we adapt, and are we comfortable enough with trying to find our ways in new places, because as a religious, you don't normally stay in the one place all your ministry. You tend to move around the country. So it's also an experience of that. It was an Ignatian. We have an Ignatian novitiate. So we have time where we learn how to pray and deepen our prayer life. And we have times where we go out and do different ministries, to explore the different ministries, to see what challenges us, what we find good. So we may find ourselves teaching, we may find ourselves working in a hospital or looking after someone at some point in time. We usually have an experience in another country and have work in soup kitchens and various other things. So they're all designed to challenge you, to see how you react, how you grow. And the novitiate, I suppose, is in a sense, one of the biggest times of growth that we get in religious life, because you're also living in a community. I lived by myself before I joined religious life, so I'm suddenly moving from a house of one into a house of six. So that knocks off edges off you.
Yeah. And I mean, one of the things we've heard over time is sometimes the novitiate's something that's maybe tolerated just to get to the other side. But I think you put a really good spin on it there. Sister Bernie, I think your novitiate would have been quite different. But you must also have some fond memories of the novitiate. Would you tell us about some of your best times in the novitiate?
Yes, I mean, I think, because I was so young, in a way, I looking back, I probably just took things in my stride. This seemed a bit odd, but I enjoyed the companionship, even though when I entered, I was the only one that year. But there were about 9 or 10 above me, and it was just lovely meeting people from different places. So companionship was part of it. And one thing that always struck me is if you were low or, questioning or anything, one of the others would always come and just be there for you, and listen and tell you, look, keep your heart up. I think that's stayed with me from the novitiate and is a sense of companionship along the way. And the other thing is, my novitiate was in London so we used to be sent out to go and do our spiritual reading, walking up and down, which I loved because I could see the sea and the mountains. Sometimes one or two people seemed to think that I was looking at the sea and mountains a little bit too much and not enough at the reading. But for me, it was lovely. And in the summer, in the mornings, we had 2 weeks, and in the morning, provided there weren't too many priests saying single masses, we used to get out about 10 o'clock and had to be back by 11:30. But I can tell you, we knew every inch of the Orme. That's where we walked. And all we could do is look at the sea, but we knew every inch of it. So I loved that kind of thing. I also enjoyed learning more, in the sense about, reading. Even when we started reading about Mary Ward, and that was in a pre-Vatican II novitiate. So the novice directress I had she really was passionate about Mary Ward. That's probably rubbed off on me. Also, there was attached to this, we were separate as novices, but we were boarding school. So one of the delights was that you would look after 2 or 3 pupils and go over to them in the evening time. So that was a real delight to have the children there. We washed up for them. We kind of, looked after things. In a sense, it just widened the scope of being a part. And yes, I think because Vatican II was happening as well, we were allowed to go and see the television once in my novitiate, and that was for the beginning of Vatican II. And that was really quite exciting. But no, I to be honest, on the whole, I have good memories of the novitiate. But I mean, some of the things we did were, antiquated.
So, Sister Una, I'm going to flip the question on you as well. Was there times in novitiate that you struggled?
Oh yeah. I don't think it's a good novitiate unless you do. I think both in the change of circumstances, in not getting your own way. I was living in my own house. I had a good job. I had a car. I had everything that I needed before I joined. So giving that up and then having everything in common with other people was a bit more difficult. I think God challenges you as much as the circumstances challenge you doing it. I suppose there's always the danger too that it's not the right time for you to join, or maybe you shouldn't be a sister. And I think facing up to that's a real possibility, is a challenge too. So, but hopefully through the challenges comes growth.
And I think that's what the novitiate's about. It's about growing in yourself and spiritually, and growing with God as well. So, Sister Bernie, you were also at one point novice director. And you're also the second novice director that we've had on the Clergy Cafe. So, can you tell us a bit about that role for you?
As novice director, yeah. Well, I think for me, one of the interesting things looking back on it is that I had 16 years in ministry, in teaching, and to me that had broadened my perspective on religious life. I would say I grew during that stage, and I'd also had to face my own questions along the way. And I think that's really good because it brought me in touch, because we were very early on from 1968, no, before 1968, we had 1965, we had directed retreats with a Jesuit. And that had got me into the whole process of discerning. So, you began to realize that, yes, life had got its ups and downs. So in a sense, when I came in as novice director, I had lived and asked questions myself. And I think that was quite important. Also, it opened up a whole new avenue for me about spirituality and spiritual direction and listening. When I was in the sixth form college, I did go on a counselling course, and that was helpful to me in listening. And then as novice director, we moved from Manchester to London, and we were in one house and there was a community in the other house. It was a lonely job in a sense, lonely ministry in a sense, because you were cut off in one way, but you were part of the other community. But I found working with the young women, amazing. Because in one sense, they gave up so much more than I'd had to give up. A bit like Una was saying, and they really were, it made me much more aware of the discerning process. And for me, one of the great gifts, I think, was directing 30-day retreats of the novices. And from that grew the companionship of working with other novice directors from other orders, and also learning more about the spiritual exercises. But working in companionship with other congregations was really crucial at that time. And yeah, I made some good friends from there. Really, really helpful. Really helpful. And it meant for the novices as well, they were also linked with people from other congregations. And I think that was a really good, it wasn't just us, but they were, and coming back and asking questions, well, why, or what's this? Different things. Yeah.
And it's really interesting as well, because I'm guessing that there was one point, I'm talking probably way back, when questioning wouldn't have been asked. You wouldn't have been allowed to ask questions. You would have just been expected to do it. And I think it's really refreshing to hear that questioning was good as well. So, Sister Una, I'm gonna just jump a few questions. You said before that you had your own house, you had a good job, and that sort of thing. You were a medical, and it's really hard to say. I'm surprised. Medical laboratory. Tell us a bit about your journey from working in the sort of the world of medical stuff to becoming a sister.
Yeah, thank you. You correctly said I started work as a med lab scientific officer, which is full title, and which I enjoyed. I love science. I worked in haematology and blood transfusion, and was fascinated by both knowing about it and by the work that I actually did. But as the years progressed, it was quite a quiet job. You could be working in a lab by yourself with test tubes doing tests and all that sort of thing. And I suppose I began to feel the desire to have more human contact in the job. And the first job that came to me was chaplaincy. But I knew I couldn't jump from what I was doing in order to becoming a chaplain, and I, at the time, was thinking of being a school chaplain. So I thought the obvious step would be to start teaching. So I applied to do a PGCE. I got that, and I started teaching in secondary schools, where I taught biology up to A level, science up to GCSE, and a bit of religion. I did that for a few years. But that in itself, as I started to learn more about God, and I felt called to religious life, that wasn't enough either. So it was trying to find my yearning to explore spirituality and to know more about myself and my relationship with God that led me into thinking about religious life. So I blame it for the fact that test tubes don't answer that.
And Sister Bernie, you met the Loreto Sisters at a very young age. What was it that captured you about the Loreto Sisters?
Well, first of all, I had an auntie who was a Loreto sister, my mum's sister. And we used to go and see her 3 times a year and have tea in the parlour. So tea in the parlour for our family was a big treat. That was probably one of the first things that captured me. Also, I found them warm, welcoming, interesting personalities. And we knew the personalities of the nuns who were teachers. You could, and also the nuns who cared for us along the way. They were very much part of the thing. Also, when I was 10, my dad died, and the Loreto nuns and also St. Joseph of the Apparition nuns, who have part of my story, they were so kind to us, very kind to us as children. And just at the time that we needed it, they were there for us. So my sense is that besides being the teachers and the people out there, there was also this other warmth side that we saw. And somehow that touched me. But it's same with Joseph Apparition, and that comes up a bit later on. Yeah.
And Sister Una, again, sorry, I'm going to throw a curveball here. Why did you choose the Loreto Sisters?
I wanted to join an order that was Ignatian.
Right.
The more Ignatian it was, the better. And when I started to inquire, I thought that Loreto was the most Ignatian order, female order that I could find. So that's what attracted me to them.
Right. So currently, Sister Una, you are chaplain at the University of Birmingham. Now, this role for you must have changed dramatically in the last year. How have you responded to that role? Tell us a bit about the role and how you've responded during the pandemic.
Normally, we would find ourselves mostly being on campus, and we've got a chaplaincy building on campus, and we hold services there and meet staff and students there. And because of the pandemic, of course, we haven't been on campus as much, and the number of students on campus has been reduced. So I've spent most of my time where I am now, which is in the Catholic chaplaincy, a small residency for Catholic students belonging to the Archdiocese for the university. And we've been doing most of our services as well as meeting people for one-to-ones through Zoom. And the students have been holding their socials through Zoom. So it's been very much a year of being apart from the students. There's a small group of students here. I've got to know them a lot better, which of course is a great thing. We've contacted students from around the world. It's a very international university, but we're always talking to students from the Caribbean, from Asia, from Africa, who haven't been on campus, but know their chaplains and know various things that we do through Zoom. So Zoom in itself has made a difference to the way we work, and I think it will always be part of the way we work from now on, because it allows students to contact us in an easier way, regardless of where they are, and maybe even in a more private way.
Yeah, it's incredible. Nobody had heard of Zoom before the pandemic, and now everybody knows Zoom. It really is incredible. I mean, we should have taken out shares in Zoom before the pandemic hit, because I think we could be doing well now. But also, you alongside your chaplaincy work, you also work in the marriage tribunal. Would you just tell us a bit about that? Because maybe some people haven't even heard of that.
The marriage tribunal is a place run by the Catholic Church, whereby obviously the Catholics don't have divorce. But we do take, obviously, the sacrament of marriage very important. It's a very important sacrament. And it's got quite high standards for people to have a successful marriage. They have to treat each other as equals. They have to fully understand what the church understands by marriage. And for some people, they get married and they don't have a real understanding of marriage. Something is wrong. Maybe their consent, as we say, their agreement to marry the other person, they didn't fully understand everything that they were taking. And if that's the case, some people bring that marriage to the marriage tribunal to be examined in a way quite similar to a normal court case. There's people who will speak in favor of the marriage. There will people who will say this wasn't a real marriage because there was something wrong with it from the very start. And there's other people who will investigate that claim. And if a claim is successful, the marriage is annulled and the person is then free to marry. We deal not only with Catholics, but also with people who may have a faith or may not have faith, who aren't Catholics, but either want to marry a Catholic or want to become a Catholic. And sometimes their previous marriages are looked into and to see whether they're genuine, whether they're being annulled.
It sounds, I don't know if this is the right turn of phrase, but it sounds like it'd be quite an interesting role to have.
Fascinating. I find it absolutely fascinating because we're always trying to do what is the best for the people who come our way. Not so much a judging of the people, which I think before I started, I was fearful of, that people would sit there in judgment of this married couple and say good or bad things about them. But it's rather trying to get to the truth of the matter and to help them whatever way the outcome is. Whether it's, yes, you have a valid marriage, how can we help you rekindle that marriage? Or whether it's, yes, there's something about it that needs to be done.
Really, it sounds fascinating. However, you also said to me that you're also studying for your license in Canon law. First of all, I don't know where you get the time, but what made you want to do this?
I love the church. And I love finding out things about the church. And I suppose I kept on being told things that I thought were incorrect about rules of the church. And that got me interested in finding out more about canon law. And the more I discover about it, the more I understand how pastoral it is. And how it tries to sort out disputes, as laws normally do. And how the laws are there to help people and how they can be better applied. So that's how my love of canon law came.
I don't know how you get the time, but I am very impressed. Now, Sister Bernie, I've got to ask this one. In your bio, you mentioned that you've spent some time in Wormwood Scrubs. Now, you were allowed to leave, weren't you?
Yes.
I think it's important to point that out to everybody that's listening, that Sister Bernie was allowed to leave. She went in each day and came back out every day. Tell us a bit about your time that you spent working in Wormwood Scrubs.
Well, when I was novice director, I always felt it was good to have one day where I was out in ministry as well, that kept me in a bigger world. So as I was in London and I knew the sister who worked in one of the sisters who worked in the Scrubs, she arranged for me to go there one day a week. I found it an amazing place. I think probably the first couple of times I was a bit nervous, but just listening to the men's stories. And I was there at the time of the Birmingham Six being there, and that had a huge made a huge impression on me. But I just was so touched that what you hear and what you see is not always what you hear when you listen. And so just being there and listening. And I also found the prison officers very, very careful. They take care of you, either leave a door open if they felt it was thing, but let you be with the prisoners as well. And certainly enriched. And part of it was another year I worked in the hospital for a chaplain. I was looking at what am I going to do when I finish as novice director? And chaplaincy in some form was drawing me. So it was, yes, and I think it enriched me and just made me see a wider world.
And you were also involved in province leadership. You were the province leader. Was that something that you would say was a challenge or something that you relished?
It was a challenge, but I've always found if I've been asked to do a ministry, and sometimes I found it maybe hard to say yes, but once I have discerned that this is what I've been asked, I will put my whole self into it. And along the way, I'd make mistakes. I wouldn't kind of get it right, but I felt I was, we always had a team, and I think they help you as well. To, you're not just you. I had 4 or 5 of us all together, so we're talking things through, and then you have the whole province, and it was very much. I both learnt a lot about myself, as well as I think I recognised 1 or 2 gifts that I had never thought I had. It's a very humbling role as well, because you hear other people's struggles, other people's journeys as well, and in a way it made me realise that my struggles and my journeys were also part of everybody else's life as well. So yes,
That's quite incredible. It really is. I think that's it. Leadership is a privilege, and it's something that I totally accept the fact that it's maybe something that comes across your doorstep and you go, oh, I don't want this at all. But actually, it's from God, and it's part of ministry. But yeah, that's incredible. Thank you for that. Sister Runa, what would you say is the most rewarding aspect of being a Loreto sister?
Ignatian spirituality brings me alive. It's my way of relating to God. It's the easiest form for me to relate to God. So being able to use that as the basis for your life and in your ministry and the relationships that it brings through ministry, the work that we get a chance to do, because I think we live a quite privileged life in the fact that we can go out and help people, and we don't have to worry about necessarily the bills over our heads or various other things. There's a great deal of freedom in that, and I think that's one of our greatest privileges, and it's definitely rewarding.
It's really interesting to say that, because that's something that's coming up for us in a lot of these religious life specials, is that it's that freedom that actually the day-to-day bills, if you like you mentioned the bills there, it's almost freeing to allow you to out for ministry, and I think that's quite something very unique about religious life. Sister Bernie, last question to you really. What is it that makes you say yes to God each day as a Loreto sister?
I think the people who I meet and work with along the way are the people who enable me to see God in many ways. And especially, say, for example, now in my hospital ministry and with the volunteers who work with us, I get an awful lot from them listening to where their story is. And that helps me. And then always been very touched by this phrase of Mary Ward, little by little, he entered my heart. And to me, I go back to Andrew and my own namesake, Bernadette, who allowed the Lord to be part of their lives. And as Una said, the Holy Nation dynamic of trying to open up and letting the Lord be with me on my journey. And I really do. My motto is I am with you. And every night before I go to sleep, I remind myself the Lord has been with me, even though sometimes I have said, Lord, where are you? But that sense, but I think people have deepened my faith so much more. The really good people that I have met on the way have moved my heart.
I think that's a really good thing for everybody that's listening to take from that. He's always there, and we're always there for him, and that's incredible. Thank you so much for both of you for sharing so much of yourselves in that. What I'm going to ask you to do now is just to share your message for our young people. And Sister Una, I'm going to ask you if you wouldn't mind going first and sharing your message to the young people of our diocese and of every diocese or everybody watching this wherever they are.
I would say to them that everyone has a vocation. And sometimes we tend to think vocation as it's only things that religious do or priests do. It's got nothing to do with me. But God calls every single one of us to something. And when we can discern what that something is for us, then we do truly become fully alive. So my request to young people would be to pray about it, to talk to others, to try and be brave and to discuss what their wildest dreams are. You never know where God's going to call you. But if you can find it and identify it, it will give you such happiness and peace that it will allow you to do whatever God is calling you to do in your life.
Thank you very much for that. And Sister Bernie, I'm going to ask the very same thing to you. If you could share your message to the young people of the diocese and beyond.
Well, hello, everybody. I've always been struck by the young people of today. And I only need to hear them on the television speaking about their experiences. And to me, it's important to say to listen to your experiences, talk to people about them, reflect on them. And as Una said, if we're talking about vocation, we're talking in that wide sense. God is with you all the time and just there as your companion. And there'll be times when you can just be with others and pray and see where God is, or be by yourselves. But allow God to be your companion on the way, in whichever way is right for you. Some people find God in poetry, some people in science, some people in walking in the hillsides. So whatever it is, trust your own spirit. That's what Mary Ward did. She was a brave, adventurous young woman. And so I say, be other Mary Wards in our world today and see where it leads you.
Thank you to you both for that, and we will certainly be using them at a later date. So one of the things that we're just doing now is we're finishing off with a little bit of maybe a competition. It's amazing how many religious get a little bit competitive at this point. I actually forgot to ask the Christian brothers their numbers, but Brother David sent me them down. So I'm afraid to say you're going up against the Christian brothers, but from what you've already said, I think there's a few wins on this one. So top drums to see who can beat them on numbers. So first of all, what date was your order founded?
1609.
Hands down on the Christian Brothers on that one. They were 1802. Okay, so we're off to a good start now. Okay. The second question. Numbers in the congregation.
About 900.
Ooh, you've pipped the Christian Brothers there by about 100. Well done. Number of houses in the UK.
Individual houses where Loretos live, we'd have to say 13.
Wow, that's a lot of houses in the UK. Next one. The number of countries with presences.
24.
You would never believe the Christian Brothers have 24 too. That's quite impressive. Now, this one is a little bit of a vague one, and in hindsight, I might have chosen a different question. However, we've got to stick to it now, because it's amazing how many religious start to argue definitions of saints here. So I'm just going to go with it and see what happens. So numbers of saints in the order.
Well, we're going to claim one, Mother Teresa of Calcutta, because she was a Loreto for 20 odd years.
Oh, no, I didn't know that. There you go. I should have known that. However, if you were to stick in venerables and blesseds, how many would you have?
We'd have 2.
There we go. So we're going to give you 2 because Mary Ward does count. So we're going to give you 2 because there's others that have claimed venerables and blesseds as well. So we'll bump you up there to 2, and that means you beat the Christian Brothers at the same time. So they had 1 blessed. So yeah. Now this next one, movable scale. The habit, 1 being full habit. Sorry, 1 being no habit, and 10 being full habit. Where would you rate the Loreto sisters there?
We're going for 5.
Oh, would you like to tell me why?
Because we have a ring and we have a cross.
Ah, there we go. So many religious orders now, it's just the cross as well. So, wonderful. Okay, we'll go for a 5. That's, again, you've just hands down. Sorry, I think you've taken the Christian Brothers to town on this one. Like, this is hands down winning. Numbers of hours in prayer per day. And you're not allowed to say 24, because that's been tried already.
Well, I suppose in honesty, we'd go 1 to 2 because we're apostolic religious, so we're out most of the time. So in terms of private prayer or public worship, I'd say 1 to 2 hours a day.
The Christian Brothers just pipped you on that one. They got 3. But well done. I think you did pretty well there. So thank you very much for that. And then what we're going to do, we're going to compile this into a little bit of a resource for the diocese to use over the next few months and years. But to both of you, I just want to say a massive thank you. I'll say more in a moment, but I just want to say thanks for sharing yourselves in this tonight. It really is really incredible to hear your stories. So don't go anywhere just yet. We're going to pray now, and then we'll bring you back in at the end. So I'm just going to bring in Father Chris. And as always, I'm sorry, but I decided just to keep going because it was my fault we were late in starting, and then my fault that I forgot the charger. So as always, Father Chris, one of these days I'm not going to start prayer with an apology, but I'm going to start with an apology once again. Sorry for taking up too much time, and I'll leave it to you.
Thanks, Sandy. As we begin our time of prayer together this evening, let's make the sign of the cross. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. As we listen to an extract from the Gospel from St. Luke, let's remember that whenever the Gospel is proclaimed, it's Jesus Christ himself speaking to us. Jesus, with the power of the Spirit in him, returned to Galilee, and his reputation spread throughout the countryside. He taught in their synagogues, and everyone praised him. He came to Nazareth, where he'd been brought up, and he went into the synagogue on the Sabbath day, as he usually did. He stood up to read, and they handed him the scroll of the prophet Isaiah. Unrolling the scroll, he found the place where it is written, "The Spirit of the Lord has been given to me, for he has anointed me. He has sent me to bring the good news to the poor, to proclaim liberty to captives, and to the blind new sight, to set the downtrodden free, to proclaim the Lord's year of favour." He then rolled up the scroll, gave it back to the assistant, and sat down. And all eyes in the synagogue were fixed on him. Then he began to speak to them. "This text is being fulfilled today, even as you listen." And he won the approval of all, and they were astonished by the gracious words that came from his lips. Care and education of those on the margins, and justice for all, is central to many of our religious congregations, and in truth, at the heart of our Christian life. Jesus said as much in that gospel extract we have just listened to. As followers of Jesus Christ, you and I are called to bring the hope of the gospel to all those we meet. Called to help others be free from any form of oppression. Called to open the eyes closed to injustice. A huge task, especially in our modern world, but one we never undertake on our own. It's always with Jesus at our side and in the power of the Holy Spirit. And as St. Oscar Romero, who 41 years ago today was martyred, once said, "We cannot do everything, and there is a sense of liberation in realizing that. This enables us to do something and to do it very well. It may be incomplete, but it is a beginning, a step along the way, an opportunity for the Lord's grace to enter and do the rest." So as we pray the Lord's Prayer together this evening, let's ask God for the grace to work always for justice and peace in our world. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen. Let us pray. O God, who inspire and bring to fulfillment every good intention, direct us into the way of eternal salvation, that we may faithfully serve you and our neighbour with a spirit of justice and peace. Through Christ our Lord. Amen. The Lord be with you. And may Almighty God bless you, the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Go in peace, glorifying the Lord by your life. Thanks be to God.
And thank you to Father Chris for that. I'm just going to bring everybody back in onto the one screen. Just to say to everybody, thank you so very, very much. To Sister Bernie and to Sister Una, thank you for sharing your passion, and your passion really comes across, and it really came across to me tonight. And actually, I don't know, I don't normally say this, but some of the things you were saying tonight, actually, I could feel it inside me, that I don't know what it was. I'm guessing it's God moving in you has made a big impact on me tonight, and thank you for sharing some of those personal stories as well that really are quite incredible, and thank you for all you do. However, true to form, we could have gone on for at least another half hour, 45 minutes, and I know both of you know how many questions we've missed out. But thank you for sharing what you did and the questions that we did get round to answering. It really is quite incredible, and we shall keep praying for Mary Ward, and that final bit is there very soon. And to Father Chris, as always, thank you so much for sharing that. And sometimes I think you know what's going to be said before it's said, because often it just works nicely. So to you all, once again, thank you so much. I never seen myself sitting here doing these interviews, but for the last 12 months we've been doing it, and it's quite incredible the different stories that we're hearing. So to you both, and to Father Chris, a massive, massive thank you from me. However, as I did start with Father Chris, I do apologise for the slight technical errors tonight. We're getting good at this, we're getting better, but clearly forgetting to plug in the laptop's quite important. And next week I will ensure it is plugged in. But to you all, a massive, massive thank you. So, it just leaves me to say a few bits and pieces. Obviously, we are on the brink of Holy Week, one of our most incredible weeks in the church. And so it all kicks off for us next Monday when me and Father Chris are going to do a little bit of a taster of what's to come. Then each night, on Thursday, on Friday and on Saturday, the team are going to bring to you a bit of a match of the day style, for putting it crudely. Match of the day style, start and end to each liturgy. We're going to just try and unpack the steps, and we're going to journey with Jesus in the Triduum. So please do look out for that. It's going to go live on YouTube tomorrow, so you'll know what times we're going. And they're going to come from across the diocese. We're going to start on the Thursday with Father Chris for his Monday, Thursday service. We're then going to come across to Rumley with Father Michael for the Good Friday service. And then we're going to head down to the cathedral to finish off the Triduum with the Easter Vigil. And we're very privileged that with Bishop Mark that will be there leading us in that. So please do look out for that. The Clergy Cafe is coming in the middle of all this, and I do apologise, it's going to be a busy week for us all, but the Clergy Cafe is live at the same time next week, next Wednesday, 4 p.m. There might be a slight delay in starting, just a bit like tonight, but not technical errors. It'll be because the Charism Mass is just finishing, so we're just going to slot right in at the end of that. So do join us, and we're going to be speaking to the Nazareth House Sisters, who are going to share again with us some of their life experience. As I say every week, don't forget to click that subscribe button that's up there. That's really important, so especially for next week when we're going live constantly all week, you'll get the notifications, so you'll know when them services are beginning. So don't forget to click that subscribe button. If you click the bell, it'll tell you when we're going live as well. And as always, we're on social media, so don't forget to click follow. There's loads of stuff going out next week. There's resources for every day. There's activities for at home. There's challenges to do. So it's really, really exciting. It's going to be a really busy week, but we are really, really looking forward to it. And then we're all going on holiday the following week. So please do join us for our Holy Week Spectacular. Thank you so much for putting up with the technical errors tonight. Slight error at the beginning of the YouTube, and obviously the laptop charger was a big issue. I will remember to get it right next week. So I do apologise for them, but thank you for sticking with us, especially if you were in that first group that joined us at the beginning and are still with us now. But thank you very much, as always, for watching, and we shall see you live here on YouTube for the Clergy Cafe at 4 o'clock next week. Have a great week, and we'll see you soon.